When law is weak, shadows rule. And he was the darkest shadow of them all. (1955), Bombay, India. A city of contradictions. Colonial mansions beside crowded chawls, luxury cars passing barefoot children. In this chaos, Dawood Ibrahim Kaskar was born. His father, Ibrahim Kaskar, was a police constable from Ratnagiri district. A strict man, disciplined, uniformed, but with little power. He enforced laws on the street, but he couldn't enforce prosperity at home. Poverty clung to the family like a second skin. The Kaskars lived in Dongri, a cramped Muslim-majority neighborhood near the docks. Narrow lanes, the smell of fish, the constant noise of traders, gamblers, and thieves. Dongri was not just poor. It was a world where crime was part of survival. Boys carried packages for smugglers, ran errands for gangsters, or stole what they could. Police raids were routine. Violence was ordinary. In this place, Dawood grew up watching the two forces of his life collide, the uniform of his father and the lawless economy of his street. As a child, Dawood was restless. Teachers remembered him as clever but disobedient, always looking for shortcuts. At school, he learned discipline on paper. On the streets, he learned another lesson. Power was not written in books, but in fists, knives, and money. By his teenage years, he was running with street gangs, fighting turf wars, stealing cars, and learning the mechanics of smuggling. Bombay in the 1970s was the hub of contraband: gold, electronics, pot, and foreign goods that slipped past customs at the docks. Dawood understood early, this black market was bigger than any classroom. His first mentor was Haji Mastan, the smuggler who ruled Bombay's underworld in the 1960s. Mastan controlled ports, bribed customs officers, and imported gold from Dubai. Dawood admired him, the style, the money, the respect. But Dawood was not content to be a follower. He wanted more than status. He wanted a kingdom. At first, Dawood worked under Karim Lala's Pathan gang, one of the oldest and most feared in the city. But tensions grew. Dawood's temper, ambition, and refusal to play second in command made him enemies. After a violent clash with a rival group, Dawood and his brother Shabir broke away. They formed their own gang, the seeds of what would become D Company. In those early years, Dawood specialized in petty crime, car theft, extortion, protection rackets. But he had vision. Unlike many street thugs, he planned long-term. He built networks across police, politicians, and dock workers. He studied how smuggling worked, how ports were controlled, how money moved. By the late 1970s, Dawood wasn't just another gangster in Dongri. He was organizing men, managing routes, calculating profits. He was creating structure in chaos. His brother Shabir became his right hand, handling muscle while Dawood handled strategy. Together, they moved beyond small rackets into large-scale gold smuggling. Bombay was hungry for imported luxury, watches, radios, electronics. Dawood supplied them, untaxed, unchecked, through his growing network. The streets of Dongri whispered his name. Police files filled with reports of his activities. Yet arrests rarely stuck. Witnesses disappeared, officers were bribed, cases collapsed. The son of a constable was now a name feared by constables. The irony was sharp. Ibrahim Kaskar had served the law. His son was rewriting it in blood and money. By the end of the 1970s, Dawood had transformed. He was no longer the boy who stole cars. He was a figure who commanded loyalty, fear, and ambition. A man who saw beyond the alleys of Bombay. A gangster who understood that stuff was not just about survival. It was about empire. He had not yet become India's most wanted. He had not yet become the Phantom of Karachi. But the foundation was set. From Dongri's narrow lanes, the outlines of a shadow kingdom had begun to appear. Because Dawood Ibrahim was never chasing survival. He was chasing power. And power in Bombay was for the taking. 1980s. Bombay was no longer just a city, it was a battlefield. Gangs controlled neighborhoods, politicians balanced power with criminals, and smuggling syndicates moved fortunes through the docks. In this chaos, Dawood Ibrahim made his move. He had outgrown street fights and petty extortion. He wanted the city. He wanted more than money. He wanted control. The old order still stood. Haji Mastan had influence, Karim Lala's Pathan gang ruled parts of the city, and the Hindu Don Varadarajan Mudaliar had loyalists. But their methods were traditional. They ran territories like landlords. Dawood thought bigger. He wanted not just streets, but systems, ports, banks, borders. He didn't play for a neighborhood. He played for the world. At first, his brother Shabir was the visible face of their operation. Dawood stayed in the shadows, calculating, building alliances. They recruited men from Dongri and beyond, young, hungry, ruthless. They gave these men salaries, weapons, and loyalty. Dawood wasn't just creating a gang. He was creating an organization, a corporate-style structure for crime, and he named it D Company. By the early 80s, the brothers challenged the old guard. Street battles erupted. Bombings, shootings, assassinations. Mumbai bled. In 1981, Shabir Ibrahim was gunned down by rivals outside a Bombay court. For Dawood, it was personal. His brother's death turned ambition into vengeance. He retaliated mercilessly, eliminating those responsible. The message was clear. Dawood wasn't just another gangster. He was the future. With Shabir gone, Dawood became the undisputed leader. His organization expanded its grip on smuggling. Gold remained the backbone of Bombay's black economy, and Dawood controlled the routes. From Dubai, gold bars and electronics arrived hidden in shipments, protected by customs officers on his payroll. But gold was just the beginning. Dawood saw the rising demand for stuff in India, in Europe, in America. Powder from Colombia, dope from Afghanistan, pot from local fields, crystal from hidden labs. All of it could pass through his network. By the mid-80s, D Company was no longer just a Bombay syndicate. Dawood shifted base to Dubai, where his empire could grow beyond borders. Dubai gave him safety, distance from Indian law, and access to global markets. From there, he built connections with Pakistani smugglers, Middle Eastern financiers, and even Colombian cartels. Ships carried powder across oceans, couriers moved dope through airports, pot was hidden in cargo, crystal was sold in nightclubs. Bombay became a hub, but the reach was global. What made D Company different was discipline. Dawood demanded loyalty, enforced rules, and created a chain of command. He bribed politicians and police, ensuring protection. Judges turned blind eyes, officers looked away, elections were funded with black money. The state didn't just fear him, it needed him. In Bombay, extortion rackets became routine. Builders, film producers, businessmen, all paid D Company. Refusal meant death. Bollywood itself became part of his empire. Actors, directors, and financiers knew his name, took his calls, and in some cases, worked under his orders. Dawood blurred the line between crime and culture. His shadow stretched from movie sets to parliament halls. Violence was his signature, but invisibility was his art. Dawood rarely appeared in public. He didn't flaunt wealth like Haji Mastan or chase celebrity like other dons. He preferred to be unseen, to let his name travel further than his face. The fear of Dawood was often more powerful than Dawood himself. By the late 80s, D Company was the undisputed ruler of Mumbai's underworld. Its reach extended across the Arabian Sea to Karachi, into Dubai's financial towers, and through the smuggling corridors that linked Asia, Africa, and the West. Investigators in New York and London began seeing his fingerprints on stuff shipments. Interpol files grew thicker. India listed him as its most wanted. But to his followers, he was untouchable. Dawood called it D Company. The world called it a criminal state. Because it wasn't just a gang anymore, it was an empire, and Dawood Ibrahim was its king. By the early 1990s, Dawood Ibrahim was no longer just a smuggler. D Company had money, muscle, and networks stretching across continents. He controlled ports, dictated terms in Bombay, and operated freely from Dubai. But for Dawood, dominance in crime was not enough. He wanted influence. He wanted to send a message that his power could rival the state itself. 1992 changed everything. India was already on edge. Religious tensions were rising, and when the Babri Masjid was demolished in December, riots tore through Mumbai. Hundreds were killed, neighborhoods burned, communities divided. Dawood watched from abroad as his city descended into chaos. For him, the riots were not just tragedy, they were opportunity. He saw a chance to strike back, to position himself as protector of one community and punisher of another. The plan was ruthless. In March 1993, a coordinated wave of bombings ripped through Mumbai. 13 explosions in a single day. The Bombay Stock Exchange, the passport office, hotels, markets, and public spaces. Cars packed with explosives ignited, buildings shattered, and the city choked on smoke and blood. More than 250 people were killed, over 700 wounded. It was the deadliest terror attack India had ever seen. Investigators traced the operation to D Company. Dawood's lieutenants had coordinated with Pakistan's intelligence services, using Karachi as a base for training and logistics. RDX explosives were smuggled into India by sea, concealed in shipments that slipped through customs under the same networks Dawood once used for gold and powder. Local operatives, businessmen, gangsters, smugglers, carried out the bombings under direct orders from D Company. For India, it was a shock. Dawood had crossed a line no Don had ever crossed before. He had moved beyond smuggling, beyond extortion, beyond stuff trafficking. He had turned his empire into a weapon of terror. Crime had merged with geopolitics. The underworld had declared war on the state. The response was immediate. Indian authorities named Dawood the mastermind of the attacks. Warrants were issued, Interpol notices circulated, and his properties in Mumbai were seized. Police cracked down on D Company operatives, killing some in encounters, arresting others. But Dawood himself was already gone. Safe in Karachi, shielded by political connections and foreign intelligence, he had vanished into another layer of shadow. For Dawood, the bombings were more than revenge or retaliation. They were business. The attacks cemented his ties with international networks, terror groups, intelligence agencies, and global syndicates. His empire expanded into gun running, political assassinations, and protection deals that reached beyond India. He became not just a gangster, but a player in regional conflict. The irony was sharp. Dawood Ibrahim, the son of a constable, had built a structure so powerful that it operated like a parallel state. He paid salaries, funded elections, controlled film industries, trafficked powder and dope across borders, and now he wielded terror like currency. Fear was no longer just a byproduct of his business. Fear was the business. Mumbai never forgot 1993. The bombings scarred the city, hardened its police, and reshaped its politics. For Dawood, they created a new identity. He was no longer simply a Don hiding in Dubai. He was branded India's most wanted fugitive, the man who had orchestrated mass murder from thousands of miles away. And with that, Dawood Ibrahim crossed the point of no return. There could be no negotiation, no return to Bombay, no chance at rehabilitation. He was now locked into his role as an international outlaw, hunted by India, watched by America, and protected by Pakistan. From that day forward, Dawood Ibrahim wasn't just a gangster. He was the ghost of Mumbai, the man whose name meant terror. After the 1993 bombings, Dawood Ibrahim vanished from public life. His face disappeared from Bombay's streets, but his name grew louder in every police station, every intelligence file, every courtroom. He was no longer just a smuggler or extortionist. He was India's most wanted fugitive, a man whose reach stretched across oceans. To find him became the obsession of investigators. To hide became the art of Dawood Ibrahim. First stop, Dubai. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Dubai had been his chosen playground, a city of money, luxury, and weak extradition laws. From there, he had run smuggling routes, real estate deals, and Bollywood financing. After the bombings, Dubai became too hot. International pressure mounted on the United Arab Emirates. Dawood could no longer move openly, so he left. Karachi became his fortress. Intelligence reports, testimonies, and leaks all pointed to the same conclusion. Dawood Ibrahim was living in Pakistan, under the protection of state elements. Safe houses in Clifton, guarded compounds in defense neighborhoods, villas near the sea, all were rumored hideouts. Some said he moved from mosque to mosque, blending into crowds. Others claimed he lived like royalty, protected by soldiers, meeting politicians, surrounded by loyalists. Every version of the story had one constant. Dawood was alive, and Dawood was untouchable. From Karachi, his empire adapted. The 1993 bombings had brought him into global focus, but they had not ended his business. If anything, they expanded it. His network continued to push powder into Europe, dope into Africa, pot across Asia, and crystal through nightlife markets worldwide. Money laundering operations funneled profits through Dubai real estate, hawala networks, and offshore accounts. Arms trafficking became another pillar of his empire, supplying weapons to conflicts across South Asia and Africa. But Dawood was not only about stuff and guns. His ties with terrorist groups deepened. Intelligence agencies in India and abroad linked him to Lashkar-e-Taiba, Al-Qaeda operatives, and Pakistani intelligence units. D Company became not just a criminal syndicate, but a hybrid entity. Part mafia, part terror sponsor, part shadow government. The man who once smuggled electronics through Bombay AS docks was now funding insurgents and supplying rifles for proxy wars. His invisibility became his power. No recent photographs, no verified recordings, no confirmed sightings. In a world of cameras and satellites, Dawood Ibrahim became a ghost. Every now and then, stories surfaced. He was spotted at a wedding in Karachi, seen praying in a mosque, visiting a hospital under heavy guard. Each rumor fueled his legend. Each unconfirmed sighting kept investigators chasing shadows. Meanwhile, his influence in India never fully vanished. D Company's operatives continued to extort businessmen, threaten film producers, and settle disputes in the underworld. Bollywood remained under his shadow. Actors and directors whispered about phone calls from Karachi. Producers quietly admitted to receiving instructions, and financiers funneled money tied to his syndicate. Even in exile, Dawood's voice carried across the Arabian Sea. For law enforcement, the frustration grew. India demanded his extradition. Pakistan denied his presence. International agencies issued red notices, sanctions, and designations. Yet Dawood remained out of reach, living openly enough to maintain his empire, hidden enough to avoid capture. He became the symbol of a man protected not only by wealth and fear, but by geopolitics. By the 2000s, Dawood was described as a global criminal. The United States designated him a terrorist, freezing assets tied to his name. Interpol maintained a permanent alert. But even then, he endured. Because Dawood Ibrahim was not simply hiding in Karachi, he was operating from Karachi, protected by governments, hidden by money, shielded by fear. 3 decades after the bombings, he remains there still, according to intelligence reports. A phantom king in exile, untouched, untried, unseen. His empire continues, stuff to Europe, weapons to Africa, blood money to terrorists, and behind it all, a ghost who rewrote the rules of survival. Because Dawood Ibrahim proved one truth about the underworld: you don't need to be seen to rule. Today, Dawood Ibrahim is in his late 60s, though nobody can confirm his exact age or appearance. Officially, he doesn't exist. No photographs, no recent videos, no confirmed address. For 3 decades, he has been a ghost in the world's eyes, absent yet omnipresent. He has mastered the art of invisibility, creating a legend that dwarfs the reality of a man hiding behind walls and guards. But while Dawood himself remains unseen, his empire, D Company, continues to breathe, to expand, and to control vast networks of crime, commerce, and terror. From the financial towers of Dubai to the narrow streets of Karachi, D Company operates like a shadow state. Banks under his influence move millions. Front companies launder money. Stock portfolios shift in ways that only insiders understand. Even in exile, Dawood's touch can be felt in Mumbai, where his operatives still collect protection money, dictate underworld politics, and enforce his rules with silent authority. Markets, ports, docks, they all remain his instruments. The rules he established decades ago continue to hold. His reach extends beyond South Asia. Powder flows into Europe, dope into Africa, pot across Asia, crystal through clandestine nightlife and underground labs worldwide. D Company coordinates shipments, logistics, and smuggling with military precision. Every courier, every vessel, every secret warehouse is part of a machine that functions without its visible master. Yet the master is there, always in the background, his instructions whispered through intermediaries, his influence felt without a single public appearance. Dawood's empire is more than money. It is power, fear, and reputation. Politicians, law enforcement officers, and businessmen have learned to navigate his world carefully. Even rumors of his movements can change the course of deals, elections, and underworld conflicts. D Company is both a criminal organization and a parallel governance system, a web of loyalty, intimidation, and influence that spans countries and continents. Afghanistan's dope labs, Pakistan's Karachi hideouts, Dubai's offshore accounts, African arms markets, all of it falls under the invisible canopy of Dawood's empire. Analysts and investigators have spent years tracing connections, yet the figure at the top remains untouchable. Each intercepted shipment or exposed operative is only a ripple. The tide of D Company continues. Its structure is resilient, its leadership adaptable. The organization has survived arrests, assassinations, internal rivalries, and international pressure, all without the physical presence of its leader. Even within India, where he is officially most wanted, Dawood's influence remains. Bollywood continues to operate in subtle deference. Businessmen pay silent tribute through protection fees, and Mumbai's underworld recognizes the boundaries he established decades ago. His empire is a testament to strategy, patience, and invisibility. The legend is not built on brute force alone, but on the calculated application of fear, loyalty, and economic leverage. Yet for all the control, Dawood remains a ghost. A figure more myth than man, whose presence is felt in empty rooms, silent offices, and guarded compounds. Intelligence agencies, police forces, and international investigators have failed repeatedly to capture him. The man who once ran Bombay's streets as a youth now commands a global syndicate without ever stepping into the light. Dawood Ibrahim is a living paradox, unseen yet omnipresent, hunted yet untouchable. A criminal, yet a strategist whose empire functions like a sovereign state. 3 decades after the bombings that made him infamous, his influence is undiminished. From the shadows, he continues to shape events, control markets, and command loyalty. His name alone is enough to silence a room. His empire endures. His legend refuses to die. He began as a street thief. He became a global ghost. Dawood Ibrahim, India's most wanted, and the shadow that refuses to die.